Chapter 5. Time seemed to freeze while Violetta made her decision. No matter what choice she made, there would be rewards for it, or consequences. Officer Rusakov would be here soon. It would be so easy for her to point me out. So easy to gain the favor of the soldiers by doing them a favor now. His heavier footsteps crunched over the twigs and old autumn leaves as he came closer, and my heart crashed against my chest. It was possible I was in the last few minutes of my life. Almost instantly, Violetta pasted a smile across her face and leaned over. "It's a fern blossom. I'm sure of it. Everyone come see." My eyes nearly leapt from my head with horror. It wasn't enough for her to turn me in alone. She wanted half the village to help her do it. Excitedly, she motioned to her friends, who came running over beside her, enough of them hoping to see the magic of blossom that they seemed to have forgotten about Officer Rusakov. And one by one, they gathered around the ferns where I was hiding, and one by one they saw me, their eyes widening as they realized what Violetta had truly discovered. I did not dare look at any of them, though I wished I could. It would be harder for them to report me if they saw my face. I only crouched there, wondering which of them would betray my hiding place, which of them would be the first to call out that they had found me and demand their reward. I cringed when I heard the first person draw a breath to speak. She called out, "It is indeed a fern blossom, Violetta. Do you feel its magic yet?" I peered up at her just barely. She hadn't turned me in at all. A girl beside Violetta asked, "Can you understand the language of the birds yet?" Violetta glanced behind her toward Officer Rusakov and then back at me, saying, "There are no birds out this late. Perhaps tomorrow I will." The group pushed in tighter around the fern, and a boy said, "Violetta, surely you know all secrets." Her eyes fell on me again. "I am afraid the greatest secrets are still a mystery to me. There is at least one thing about which I have many questions." Then a third person asked, "And what of the third promise of finding the fern blossom? Can you read our thoughts?" I finally looked up, and Violetta's gaze locked on mine. She nodded. "Yes, I can. I know the thoughts of everyone in the circle, and perhaps you have all been touched by the magic too, for I am sure you know everything I am thinking." Perhaps they did, for the group moved in even tighter around the fern, so many of them that unless the officers forced them apart, I would not be seen. They were protecting me. I almost couldn't believe it. But in some unspoken pact, they were keeping themselves close enough together to shut out the moonlight and bury me in their shadows. "There are no fern blossoms," Officer Rusakov shouted from somewhere outside the group. "You illiterate peasants don't know how foolish you are." Anger was thick in his voice as he issued orders to the other officers still searching in the area. "We'll search the village, and if we find any of you have taken this girl into your home, you'll pay dearly for it." The soldiers left with him, and the people around me casually moved about the area, perhaps so they wouldn't draw any suspicion our way if the officers were nearby spying on us. When a boy ran back to say that we were safe, Violetta reached into the ferns and offered me a hand up. By then my ankle had stiffened worse than before, and without her holding my hand, I might have fallen. With my other hand, I still kept my father's shoulder bag close against my chest, hiding the package inside it along with the contents. There must have been 20 people around me, mostly older teens or people in their early 20s, all looking me over as if I had leeches on my face. I looked down at my white blouse and skirt, which were so stained with dirt that they were anything but white now. I'd lost my woven sash somewhere in my walk here, and my green apron had a rip in the side. "I've seen you before in the market," Violetta said. "What's in that bag?" a boy near her asked. "That's not our business, Philip," Violetta said sharply. "I'm sure we don't even want to know." Nor could I tell them. I merely pulled it tighter to myself. "You need to get as far from this village as possible," Philip said. "You'll want to stick to the forest. The Cossacks will look for you in the village next." I glanced up, forcing myself to speak. Fenska. I need to go to Fenska. And then I immediately looked down. Philip pointed northward. Follow the path there and cross the river. Then continue for about 20 kilometers. The path will split, one to the left and one to the right. You'll go to the right, and eventually it will empty into Venska. 20 kilometers? So far. I couldn't hide the concern in my voice. As dark as the rest of the night would be under this thick canopy of branches and leaves, I was likely to wander off the path and never know it. If you need help, a girl behind Violetta offered. I don't. I wanted to be clear on that. Any of them could have been arrested tonight, just like my parents, for allowing me to hide in the ferns. Or it could go worse for them. I knew how much they were risking. I could crawl to Venska on my own before I accepted any more help from those people. Here, take these. Violetta removed her shawl and wrapped it around my shoulders. Then someone behind Philip passed forward a basket with some cakes in it. With my eyes lowered, I mumbled a thank you as I accepted both gifts, then hobbled toward the path. Minutes later, as the path wound into the deeper part of the forest, I glanced back, hoping to see my parents there, beckoning me home again. When they weren't there, when filtered beams of lantern light from the party created long shadows among the dark trees, I turned around again. There I faced thick brush and winding dirt path that had led me to a tomorrow I could not predict. One step later, I was officially the farthest from home than I had ever been, and I was certain I'd never come back again, which was the worst thought of all.